So I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna work with the P200 and I'm gonna set it. By the way, when you change the dial, you want to turn the, I guess the dials that are on the side. Sometimes you can turn the top, but I really don't like doing that because I actually seen people break the tops a few times. So I actually prefer to turn the dials that are on the sides of the micropipettor. So I'm gonna set this to 100 microliters and I'm gonna make a measurement. Okay. So let's talk about tips a little bit. So that's the P200. So we have 3 different sizes for tips. We have very small tips that only work with the P2 micropipettor and nothing else. Then we have medium-sized tips, which are color-coded yellow. And these will work with the P20 pipettor that measures up to 20 microliters or the P200 pipettor that measures up to 200 microliters. And then we have what we call the P1000 tips, which are clear, and those only work with the P1000 pipettor, okay? So we have, let me turn this around like this. We have 3 different types of tips that work with different pipettors depending on what volumes the pipettors measure, from very small to medium size to large. And the middle ones are always color-coded yellow, okay? So I already know, because I want to measure with my P200, I already know that I need to use the yellow tips, which are the P200 tips, okay? We often use these in microbiology and molecular biology, and for that kind of work, the tips need to be sterile. And oftentimes you're gonna find that there's a little bit of tape that prevents you from opening the lid of the box, right? So it's great that way, you know, it's less likely that this is gonna fall and like drop all the tips out of the box. But the other reason is a confirmation that all of these tips are sterile, right? So, but to open the box, you need to remove the autoclave tape. But I like to keep the autoclave tape on the box. So normally what I do is I peel the autoclave tape out, and then I put it right on top of the box, okay? And that's a reminder that this box is full of sterile tips, right? When the tape is still still across the lid and the box itself, you know that this has never been opened. So you are 100% sure that the tips are still sterile, right? When you find the tips like these with the tape on the top, it means that somebody previously opened the box, okay? But that the tips at one point were sterile, as opposed to something that was never sterile to begin with, okay? All right, so then you want to open the lid, and then you need to attach one of the tips. This is what the tips look like, and I really lied to you. I told you they were always yellow. Well, it looks like we have some that are clear here. Never mind about the color-coded stuff, but what you want to do is put a tip on the tip of the pipettor. So to do that, you just put the pipettor on top of the tip and then just put a little bit of pressure on it, and then it should attach to the pipettor. Take it out of the box, and then you're ready to make your measurement. Like I say, the other videos do a great job with these, but make sure that you know what we are talking about when we talk about the 2 stops on the plunger. This very top piece on the micropipettor is called a plunger, and it actually has these 2 stops. So when you use your thumb, this is how you should hold the pipettor. When you use your thumb to depress the plunger, it's gonna come to a stop. It's like a natural first stop, right? But be aware that it can go farther than that if you push harder. So that will be what we call the second stop. This is the first step. So here's the plunger, first step, second step. Plunger all the way up, first step, second step. So make sure that you know the difference between those two. By the way, I have this set to 100 microliters now. So I have this set to 100 microliters. And look at where the plunger sits, right? Now, if I set it to 200, I don't know if you can see it, but this plunger is actually coming up. So if I set it to 200, the plunger is coming up. So I have it to 190, there you go. So I have it at 200. So the plunger went up, which means that there's more, you have to travel a farther distance when you depress the plunger, right? And that represents really, you know, the volume that you're aspirating into the micropipettor, into the tip, because this really is, in essence, is like a glorified syringe, right? So the farther that you move the plunger and the syringe up, the more liquid that you're gonna aspirate into the tip. So in the, you know, if I was to drop the volume on the dial to like the lowest volume, 20 microliters, the actual play will be very, very tiny on the plunger. Okay. So so what I wanna do is transfer, I'm just gonna leave it at 200. So what I wanna do is transfer 200 microliters of this yellow solution into one of these microcentrifuge tubes, okay? So the first thing that I need to do is fill my tip with 200 microliters of this solution. First you set the dial to the right volume, as we've been showing you. Then you want to depress the plunger to the first step, not the second, but to the first step. So I'm on the first step. Then you're gonna put the tip in your solution and then slowly release the plunger. And I can see my tip is getting filled with the solution. You can see how it's got the liquid on the tip now. And then I'm gonna grab my centrifuge tube, because I like to see what I'm doing when I'm working, so I like to keep things in front of my eyes, right? I always confirm that I have liquid on my tip, and I want to see where this liquid is going. So it's going into this tube. So I'm going to put the tip on the tube, and I'm slowly going to depress the plunger till all the liquid comes out. And this is when I use the second step, when I do that. So the second step is there to make sure that when you're emptying the tip, that you guarantee that you get everything out of it. So it gives you that extra bit of like oomph, you know, to push everything out of the tip. All right. You need to be smart that you do not cross-contaminate samples when you're micropipetting. So the best practice is to always use a new tip every time that you do one transfer, right? So in this example, I did one transfer. I transferred 200 microliters from this beaker into this tube, and I'm done with this tip. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and eject the tip into the beaker that I dedicated for 30 tips, right? And the micropipettors have a tip ejector right on the top for convenience. So all you have to do is press down on the ejector, and it will eject the tip out of the micropipettor. Okay, so I'm gonna repeat that just one more time. I'm gonna open the box. Now notice how my box is closed. The lid is closed on the box. That's really good habit to develop, is only open the box when you need to get the tip. So open the box, attach the tip to the micropipettor, and then close the box. Confirm that you have the right measurement you need. Depress the plunger to the first step. Put the tip on the solution. Aspirate slowly to fill the tip. Take the tip out of the solution. Then grab the microcentrifuge out of the rack for the microcentrifuge. Try not to do these where you're just pipetting remotely. You know, like I told you, it's much better if you get in the habit of always looking at what you're doing. So grab the microcentrifuge tube, so you can see the liquid coming off the tip till it's completely empty. Go to the final push on the plunger, take it out, put it back in your rack, and then eject.